In higher ed, we're all looking for big wins, but reducing a 75% application abandonment rate and achieving a 90% conversion rate, that's next level transformation. Michael Battersworth, CMO at Texas State Technical College, shares how they achieved this by streamlining the application process with Element 451.
Our Element journey began out of a necessity. We were switching to a new SIS, and the application process was going to pose some real usability issues for us. We felt that application was going to hamper our enrollment. So we began quickly to evaluate different CRMs, different applications. So for context on that, our conversion rate with the prior application had about 75% abandonment of people clicking apply to submit. And the first weeks after going live with Element, we saw an 80% conversion, and that's now up to 90. So improving the usability of that application on the front end process has had a significant advance in our intake.
When technology works for students, it works for you. Visit element451.com to see how simplifying the application process with artificial intelligence will lead to significant results for your institution. Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where each week we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade focused on student support and digital experiences. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Higher Ed Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. It is always a pleasure for me to have a sitting president from a higher ed institution on the show. That is who we have today. Our guest, Mark, you are the president of National University, but you also do a lot of other really cool things. So if you want to give kind of passing mention to kind of your journey that brought you to National University and everything else that you're doing right now, just so folks can get to know you a little bit before we get into our conversation, which will be focused in on kind of defining and sort of extrapolating on the modern learner.
Yeah, glad to be in the conversation, Dustin, and thank you for the opportunity to help catalyze this conversation. I'm pretty passionate about it. It's a pretty circuitous route to kind of get to where I am right now, but the red thread of my 30 plus career in the world of higher education is totally focused on trying to help low-income, first-generation, and diverse learners be more successful on higher education pathways. And I've done work across K-12, community colleges, universities, workforce development. I've been involved in major philanthropy. I've done work with the U.S. government, even internationally, working a little bit with the State Department's work, kind of outreach for education. Done work on the corporate side, helped found a software company that was focused on student success analytics. But coming to National University has really been, in many ways, I jokingly call it my jam, because National University is a university that was founded by a Navy captain PhD about 54 years ago, who was heartbroken watching service members try to access traditional education using their GI Bill after the Vietnam War. And one of the things he saw is the traditional model of education. Well, we love the traditional model of education. It works well for a lot of folks. But for non-traditional working and military students, the model just doesn't work well, especially if you're trying to take care of kids, trying to hold down a full-time job while you're going to school, whatever that might be. So he said, let's do something a little bit different. And he started as a graduate school, went with a group of former officers who were all advanced degree holders, went to the Accrediting Commission in California and started this little graduate school called National University. Fast forward 50 years later, or 54 years later, and now this university serves about 50,000 degree-seeking students a year, about a third doctorate, about a third master's, about a third bachelor's, another 80,000 in workforce training, contract training. work nationally and internationally. We have students in all 50 states, heavily based in California. Our headquarters are in San Diego. We are 100% focused on non-traditional working and military students. That is our student population. We began with an innovation around, Dr. David Chigos was his name, and his key innovation back then was, hey, taking 4 or 5 classes at the same time over 16 weeks is never going to work for a working learner. They're ridiculously high quality. They're working their tails off, but that model doesn't work. And his big thing was, let's do one course at a time, but short courses. Let's do 4-week, 8-week courses one at a time. And they can actually progress really effectively. And one of the things he found in that process was, hey, let's embrace whatever tool, technology, technique, policy, practice that'll help these learners learn more effectively and design for them, not try to retrofit them in, not just do what you do in a traditional model at night, right? Let's do something a little bit different. So today we are, heavily online, hybrid, with some mixed model on ground. 6 colleges and schools, unbelievably strong array of programs. We are the Carnegie classification technically is a professions-focused undergraduate, graduate, doctoral, large university, and we are in that unique category that was featured in the Carnegie classifications as an opportunity university, which means because they rate you on access and earnings, and when you analyze our profile, we're a high. So we're high accessibility, which means low cost, good flexibility, great things, but we're also really high on earnings for our students that are coming out. The ACE folks will tell you that those opportunity universities are really kind of the social mobility monsters, right? We're the ones who are really trying to make a difference. And kind of our recipe, our secret ingredient is a radical focus on the students that fit our profile. We know who our students are and we design for them.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, and I appreciate you giving me a little bit more detail into kind of the model, because I think, that will then be, you're saying like, who your students are, and I think that is going to be increasingly emblematic for more institutions of the students that will be serving the sort of modern learner we'll get more into, but just the idea of relatively younger institution, the idea, because I always think about man, if you started a college today, how different it would be. And, there are institutions like yours that are relatively newer than some of the hundreds of year old institutions out there. But the idea of aspects of your model that I always, involved in your career history with WGU, any of these ones that just are kind of doing things really boldly and really great innovations and everything where, not everyone has to be the next National University or WGU or Southern New Hampshire or whatever, but there's aspects of the model that can be really, I think, inspirational, because I think even the the sort of line that you said of not just doing what you're doing during the day at night so that people who are working can do it, you really need to kind of fully embrace those learners.
I think for some institutions, it's really not their niche. They're really good at the 18 to 22-year-old right out of high school student population. And I literally will tell, hey, if you're an 18-year-old who wants an on-campus experience with climbing walls and residence halls, for the love of God, don't come to National. But later in life, when you're working full-time, taking care of kids, and you want to advance and get that MBA or that doctorate, that's us. Right. So our number one matriculation partner is San Diego State University. We work hand in hand in kind of regional education ecosystems. And I'll say it all the time. This is not a better than conversation about National being better than other universities. I think we're all better with multiple models, so people at different ages and stages can get the kind of education that matters for them, especially a high quality education. I firmly disagree with the idea that to be more accessible, you have to be lower quality. That's nonsense. You can be more flexible and accessible for our kind of population, but have really high standards and high quality. Just means you got to be focused on it. It's not a side hustle. This is our hustle. We are absolutely focused on this student population.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of what I was getting at. So I appreciate you putting a fine point on it, is the idea that aspects of what you're doing can be informative and helpful and, kind of inspirational, hopefully for other institutions, where it's not oh, we have to structurally change everything about who we are as an institution to become the next, SNHU, because that's what I think you've seen a trend line of everyone wants to be blank institution global or something. We're going to get like students from all over planet Earth and everything else. We're going to grow to like 500,000 students, whatever. And it's like, because I think that's like even just a notion where people will have like, a person that's a role model and they'll be like, I want to be just like you. Like, how did you do it? Whatever. It's like I'm the only me. I had my path. Like, I can give you some advice about like, one thing or another, but like, you can't just like repeat the same formula and get the same results or something. But I think I can give you some, tips and pointers about like, understanding, for our conversation here, like understanding who these learners are, what they need and sort of like, just those sort of things. So it's like, you can, I think, take cues from that. Cause I think a lot of, for me, with a lot of my background just being in like digital education, like the advent of online learning, a lot of what you do to like build out that whole digital experience for student, a lot of it can be and should be in service of all of your students, not just the online students. And I think with kind of what I was pointing out before, that idea of like, oh, we're like just doing like what we're doing during the day at night. But then it's like kind of the implication of that is that there's like this whole kind of chasm between it. It's separate. It's like us versus them. Got to like, you get into all that kind of stuff once you start like, yeah.
And you can actually, I'm a big believer, higher education at its best is it works on the case model. And the case model stands for copy and steal everything, right? If there's really good ideas out there, figure out how you can pull elements of that in that work with your mission, vision, strategy, and really implement it in a big way. And I do think the conversation we're trying to get in nationally right now is understanding, and we're really trying to, influence policy and practice around this. The major policy and funding infrastructure for higher education in this country is really focused on the 20th century model of higher ed. It is about traditional students going to traditional institutions, everything from Pell Grants to everything else, all focused on that model of education. And that's okay. That's still a functioning, part of higher education. But we've got to be more expansive. We have to think about broader strategies, focusing more, for example, on tuition assistance strategies and other kinds of models to be able to fund and create flexibility. But that means the accreditors have to understand it, the policymakers have to understand it. And increasingly, the good news is more people who are going to be in positions of power have now experienced alternative education models that will really work for them. So they're probably going to be more likely to be kind of flexible in that thinking. We just have to, this is my biggest thing. I do this all the time. I'll ask an audience of 5,000 people, I'll say, picture a college student, like close your eyes, picture a college student, get that picture in your head, open your eyes. How many of you thought of a 36-year-old woman with 2 kids who's working a full-time job? How many of you thought of a construction worker who's trying to upgrade their career? How many of you thought of a deployed soldier? No hands go up, maybe 1 or 2. And what everybody thinks of is that 18-year-old, 20-year-old with a backpack on the quad. And that's because our media model of what a student is that. And one of the most important things we can do, and Dustin, that's why I'm glad you've invited me on here, is we just have to blow that up. We have to help people think like higher education, almost 20 million students are involved in some kind of higher education. And that living on campus, going full time, not working, right from high school population is like 20%. The vast majority of students in higher education have much more complex lives. We actually call them Anders, and we call them Anders because they are parents and students. They are employed and students. They are deployed and students. And part of what we have to do is meet them in that and help them succeed on that pathway.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue because I wanted to kind of make sure that we gave sort of a moment to, before we get too far in the conversation, to define, what you see a modern learner as. And I think that Ander vernacular is great. There's been a lot of like lip service around this of like, the past several years of just sort of like, adult learners, we have to serve them better, recruit more of them, or, we should build around, being more accommodating and accessible to them. And I think now it is where with kind of the existential crisis of the enrollment cliff, it is upon us now. And, the urgency or the need for a lot of institutions to like, and again, it's not going to just be like a one size fits all, one path kind of like, as long as you do this, you're going to, be fine, whatever. But like, I think it is just making institutional leaders rethink their models. How can they maybe build, their like digital education portfolio, whatever else. And some of these things are then going to make them have more modern learners, adult learners, students and everything. So I think it's like whether it's like explicitly like, that you're chasing after this target or you're just sort of doing the things that I think are just smart strategies, I think you're going to be, interfacing more with modern learners. So I don't know if there's anything else around maybe just, further defining modern learner or just any of the more sort of context kind of piece about like in this moment in time, why it's really that much more important to be kind of understanding who these people are and what their needs are.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things. One is I think when everybody is framing the challenges of higher education as the enrollment cliff, I always kind of laugh because I think, that is such a deficit model, right? The truth is there are almost 40 million people in this country with some college and no credential. The vast majority of them left not because they were in bad academic standing. The vast majority left because of life and logistics or sometimes psychosocial issues. There are things going on. And the traditional model might not have worked for them. And part of what we have to think about is, yes, the mix of learners are changing. We have to start thinking about how we design programs and policies and practices that actually fit the broad population of students that are coming to us. And that's a challenge for some institutions because they weren't built for that from the beginning. So they have to rethink a lot of stuff. Less of a challenge for national. In some ways, kind of the world's come to us because of that, which is, kind of a good thing. And it's an important thing that this is not, and I feel really strongly about this. If you're doing this because you want to scale and you want to be a mega university, for the love of God, get out of this game, please. You should deserve to grow. You should be so good that students find you. We use the phrase, be good to grow. The focus is be ridiculously good at helping students, the different kinds of students who are coming to you, learn well, finish strong, launch effectively. And guess what? Students tell other students, and suddenly things start really rolling for you in a really big way. And I think that is the challenge, is for us to really think, okay, what are the student populations that are coming? And how are our policies, practices, and techniques and technologies and learning strategies, whatever it might be, do they fit for the student population? So the question is the student college ready? The question is the college student ready? Are we ready to really meet these students' needs? And it's a hard question to ask in some context, because the history and culture of an institution has been so focused on one kind of student population. And by the way, they might decide that they're just going to be great at that student population and that's what they're going to focus on. That's good. And we've done that. And we have always focused on non-traditional working and military students. That's our student population. Interestingly, we're one of the fastest growing segments for us is the kind of 18 to 30-year-olds who are coming to us because they want to earn and learn. They want to work while they're going to school. They want a different model, a traditional model. I think post-pandemic, a lot of them said, oh, wow, there's actually some great ways you can learn online. And I kind of like it. And it's interesting because we're having to get better at younger students. That hasn't been our thing. Our average age of our undergrad is 33. Average age of our master's is 37. Average age of our doctorate is 42. But we have students, when you come to our commencements, you'll see students as young as 18 and as old as 80. And you're just as likely to see kids cheering for mom and dad getting their degree as you are to see mom and dad cheering for the kids. Mm-hmm. So it's really this wonderfully kind of complex, diverse. I mean, we're like 70% racially ethnic diverse. We're a big HSI, MSI. But that isn't because we focus on that. It's because we focus on non-traditional working and military students, and that population is just happens to be America, right? In terms of the broad population of folks who are coming through, we're still at our undergraduate level. We're still 50% military affiliate, either active duty veteran or spouse dependent. So it's you learn to understand those contexts and those cultures. For us, those working students, those non-traditional students who like different learning models like online and metaverse and whatever it might be, they're different beasts, right? And you better be ready to meet their needs. But and I want to just reinforce this, Dustin, they want quality. They better be good, right? So we, one of the big measures for us is we look at deep student engagement. We use a variation of the National Survey of Student Engagement, which is a really wonderful measure of deep student engagement. Mm-hmm. But then we also use NPS. And NPS is that Net Promoter Score, one of the best ways to find out whether or not the experience they have with you is so good they want to tell other people about it.
That kind of leads to my next question of just sort of like the ways that institutions can, just do a better job recruiting and engaging these learners. And one is just sort of like doing those pulse checks and getting the feedback and just always kind of checking over your shoulder, how are you doing? But clearly just passionate generally about this, which I love, but also passionate about some of these aspects of this conversation of because and we've seen just generally, I think on the whole kind of higher ed ecosystem here, of looking at this landscape and understanding okay, we need more online courses, we need more adult learners or whatever else. And if you're getting sort of diluted and getting just dollar signs in your eyes and, not really level setting your expectations about time horizon on that or increased enrollment you might get or whatever else, just really cautioning against that and really, doubling down on just building a, high quality online program that has a
Yeah.
supportive, engaging, digital experience for students, and, whatever else. You just like have that infrastructure there. Because I think that aspect, and I just was in a couple of webinars recently that were really honing in on that idea of like reputation is this sort of like catalyst for so many other things, because you could like spend all the money in the world on all the digital ads to try to increase enrollment or this or that, the other thing, but like you've got to do the work to earn people's sort of respect and sort of affinity and that good reputation, which will then, good word of mouth and whatever else.
And just authentically do the work. Like make sure you're doing the work to that you have high quality instructional programs, but also we call it whole human support. Like we're all about this notion of understanding who these folks are. Some of our students are rock stars. I mean rock stars, and our job is to get out of their way. Like the bureaucracy of higher ed doesn't make any sense to them, and for them it's just help them learn what they want to learn, help them get on the credential pathway, make the connections, have the transformative experiences. Others need some more scaffolding, and they might be first generation, low income, whatever it might be. So sometimes that means a lot of peer navigation, get them connected with the right kind of resources, really wrap some financial support, some academic support, some social support around them. And our I like the word scaffolds because scaffolds are there when you need it, and they go away as the structure gets stronger. And the idea is that student by the time they leave is a rock star. Our job is to meet that student where they are and take them on that path. We have a very simple recipe for our work, and people can steal it all they want, which is we deeply believe that if you embrace next generation education, which is, and that's not a trendy phrase, that literally is our operational definition, is the technologies, the techniques, the policies and practices that are advancing the practice of education, helping people learn well, finish strong, launch effectively. Embrace it, learn about it, whatever it might be, but wrap that in whole human support. Whole human education really matters to us. And if you take next gen wrapped with whole human, then aim that. This is important. You got to aim it at what we call value-rich education outcomes. Value-rich is about credential rich, help them get the family of credentials that make sense for them, badges, certifications, and degrees. And we try to make sure we wrap as many of those as necessary for that student to help them in their career. And then connection rich, because what we hear from our students is it is those connections, student to student, student to faculty, student to professionals in their space, that are often the most transformative. I mean, never once have I heard a student stand up at a graduation and say, that LMS changed my life, right? I mean, what they talk about is another person, right? And then the third is that we call experience rich, and this notion of internships, clinicals, apprenticeships, and getting experiential learning, project-based learning in the classroom is just game-changing for our students. So we think next gen wrapped in whole human, aimed at value rich, that's the recipe for our student population that really makes sense.
The idea, like you were saying, just sort of like, copying and stealing and all that, but it's like, still at the end of the day, you're going to be sort of remixing and, like you said, like aligning it with your values as an institution. But
well, creativity is not inventing something new. Creativity is effectively combining ridiculously good ideas from lots of places to actually meet a need that you're trying to meet.
It's like certain things that are just these sort of like, best practices, gold standards, like whatever you want to call it, like just starting to kind of like filter out, and again, just to be, even if it's just sort of like the sentiments or sort of like, the kind of big kind of bullet points of like, what they're doing, why it's important, all that. Because a lot of what you're speaking to is sort of the student experience, student success, student support, like anything on like the recruitment side, because like you're saying that idea of like shorter courses or different things, so obviously that's going to be like, okay, great, yeah, I can fit that into my schedule, like just the sort of face value aspects. Is there anything else that you want to sort of share or speak to about like how you sort of set yourselves up to sort of like welcome in students, like about like, how they apply or how you reach students or connect with them? Or because obviously a lot of it is, again, like you've built the quality, accessible, flexible experience that is on face value. People kind of like see it on the shelf kind of thing and be like, oh, I'm interested in that, and they'll pick it up and check it out. Anything on like the recruitment side you could speak to quickly?
Yeah, I think your number one recruiting tool better be referrals, right? Students better be telling other students about you, because that's the big thing. And we actually feel pretty deeply about this. Every commencement to our entire wonderfully kind of diverse panoply of students who are sitting there from all different kinds of backgrounds, my charge to them is, hey, each one reach one. Every one of you are now a symbol of people from a non-traditional working and military background who have been successful in higher education. It's radically important that we help more people understand that they can be successful. and to get, each one reach one is get somebody else on an education pathway. And by the way, it does not have to be with national. It can be, there are all kinds of great resources out there. I was one of the early trustees for Western Governors University. I've done work in education across the board. I think I'm a big fan of community colleges. I think there's great opportunities to work with lots of different kinds of institutions. And the big thing is help somebody else from your kind of background get on the path. Like, what can you do to help support them? Because there's nothing more powerful than somebody you know and trust getting you on that pathway. The vast majority of students going to what people would sometimes call the elite institutions, or people jokingly call them the highly rejected institutions, the vast majority of students going there are second, third, fourth generation college going, which means parents have prepared them from birth to go on that pathway. They are scaffolded by support. And so part of what we have to do is make sure we're like getting that culture to help other people realize they can help other folks understand what's possible. So that's job one, is that referral side. The second is you got to make sure people understand there's another way to go. You don't have to go in a traditional model. If you want to go in a traditional model, for the love of God, go there. But if you need a non-traditional model, there are lots of good options for you. And realize, and they can be high quality. You have to be able to tell your story, showcase your students. And that's where it gets really, doing the job of showcasing those rock star students, those people who are really doing it, really important, because people want to know they're a part of something substance. So that quality is a really big deal. And the third that I would really emphasize is this idea of belonging. Like, students, it's amazing to me how many students, who come to National, even after hearing about it from somebody else, and soaking in our features that as they're going through the orientation program, before they're walking into their first class, and I hear this all the time, they still think they're not going to belong. They still think somehow that's not, and then they suddenly get into the learning experience and they're like, oh my gosh, this is for me. There are other people like me, and we can all help each other be successful. There's never been a better time to be in the world of education, caring about the students we care about, than right now. There are so many unbelievable tools and technologies and techniques that actually work for these students and allow them to access learning in a way. I mean, literally, 50, 60, 70 years ago, you had to go to a university because they had a library, right? They had the libraries that actually had the information you needed. Now, everybody's got the information at their fingertips, and AI is going to help you sail through it and find exactly what you need when you need it. There are ways of connecting people around the world. You can find somebody who's in your profession who is literally halfway around the planet, and you can build a relationship and a connection with them. This is such a rich time to be in the world of education, and in some ways, we just have to make sure we are constantly curating and connecting all of those capabilities and trying to help our students really just kind of soak it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an idea of like doing the work, building sort of a quality student experience and everything else, like, that is the way that you like recruit more students who are going to be more successful, have better experiences, and sort of like keep that sort of virtuous cycle of like referrals and, just really high trust, high reputation, everything else. But and like you said, the idea of, what would empower a modern, relevant, kind of impactful student experience anymore is like, thoughtfully, intentionally bringing together, all the variety of really amazing ed tech tools that are out there, and understand the balance of like, we're still social animals. We're still probably going to want to like process what we're, sort of engaging with on the content side. Like, and maybe, AI is helping us to sort of like, process all of it or whatever. But like, it's just that idea of like, I always just appreciate those opportunities to be able to like, talk about all the things that I'm reading and hearing and seeing and listening to and all that. So that idea of trying to bring those things together, and helping folks to understand, I guess, maybe even like the value of that, if they're like, find everything I want online by myself and do it all, whatever. It's like, you can just be guided through maybe like the best way to do that and have like a community and, build your social capital, whatever. Well,
I mean, that's one of our jobs. Our jobs is to curate and connect the student to all those learning experiences. But our goal is by the time they leave, they should be a power learner, which means they could probably guide some of their own learning. And what we'd love to be is just to be, again, be that guide on the side, that connector, that, the convener to kind of pull that together. What's really kind of powerful about this is you can build this sense of community even between your alumni and others. And we have this really active alumni community that is deeply connected. And part of it's because they're on the mission with us, right? They're trying to help make sure that students know they belong and they can be successful, which is really kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. Anything you can speak to about how AI is impacting the way that your team operates, or the way that you're just like serving your learners, or different things like that. Like anything that you want to kind of give mention to.
We have this really vibrant AI council that works on this all the time. We have an about, with, and beyond framework. And the about framework is we want students to learn about AI, with AI, and beyond AI. And the about AI is every discipline. We have 150 different programs, again, doctoral, masters, and bachelors. Every one of them, we're preparing professionals who are likely to use AI in their profession. So it is educational malpractice for us not to prepare them to use AI as part of their profession. If they're going to be a lawyer, guess what? They're going to use AI. If they're going to be an engineer, they're going to use AI. If they're going to be a coder, they're going to use AI. If they're going to be in cybersecurity, they're definitely going to use AI. The about part is making sure every one of our programs is thinking about the AI for that program. Secondly, we need to do the work of making sure we're thinking about how we operate with AI as a part of our navigation and connection with the students. And so we're weaving it into our chat infrastructure, we're weaving it into our navigation. And the idea is we're constantly challenging ourselves, how can we get better at providing the learning, leveraging AI to connect them to different learning resources. And then the beyond AI is just making sure we're doing the work of preparing them to be, all the kind of like broader, durable skills they'll need to be able to work in teams, collaborate, and be able to be problem solve, decision make, ask hard ethical questions, and actually understand, hey, this is probably not a moment for AI. This is a problem. This is a moment for people to get together and kind of drive this work. But that means they need to embrace it, because so many of the wicked domains, like healthcare and education and others, are going to be this AI-HI combo. We're using artificial intelligence and human intelligence together. We have to have people who are thoughtful enough that they're not just taking orders. They're actually a part of kind of creating what the future is going to look like. So we're really excited about the AI conversation. Our people are kind of on fire about it. We have this unbelievable rock star set of faculty members who have just, Jody Rees and Chris Salissa, who's just leaned into this in kind of a really big way. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's such a great framework for kind of an institutional strategy for embracing AI. And it is that idea of like, it's the harmonious sort of like combination of both. Like it needs to be like a human who like, puts guardrails in place, and that idea of like, sometimes it's like, I need to be, just, speaking with you face to face in person. Other times it can be like, well, yeah, like automate that task. Like if you could go like order my groceries for me, my usual order, you know what that is, whatever. Like I'm just like automating, I don't know, like those sort of things where it's just like, I don't need to be bothered with that. I just need this, the standard stuff for next week or whatever, which then, frees us up to do all the other things or whatever. So I think,
which is the classic line, is like the greatest gift technology can give us is the ability, one, to harvest time. If we can use technology to help take away things that are wiping out our time that we can spend. And the other is, I'm a big believer in, I really think we can use technology to make human moments precious, where we make sure the right students are talking to the right other students. We're connecting them to like near peer strategies. We're connecting them to key mentors and relationships. And there are all kinds of ways of doing that. And that's when you're, the worst way of using technology is when I'm doing student focus groups and students are talking about their experiences in the past with death by PowerPoint and this and that. Like that's it's crushing. Like it's, how can you use it to actually make, the people side of this even better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that ability for, various platforms and wherever the student is at, like it could be like on the recruitment side of like, hey, I just want to know more about National University. Like you can help facilitate those interactions easier throughout a student's experience, whether it is, their peers, faculty and all that kind of stuff. Like it can make those things easier, whether it's scheduling face-to-face in-person time or, video calls or just sort of like chats and, different things like that. So yeah, I mean, it is that idea. For me, it's like when you're doing it right, you're, having that discernment about like, the best modality in the best moment or whatever, but also how does this sort of like fit everything together? And thankfully, I feel like across the board, like I'm starting to see the really clear, tangible examples of folks that are doing that. And at the very least, folks like yourself who are like, putting it into sort of like the strategy and just like thinking a lot about it and trying to just sort of like have that influence of being like, this is how we all need to be sort of, not being fearful of this.
We've been on this journey. We've been on this journey before. We're just moving faster. I mean, we did this with microcomputers. It completely changed the field of education. We did it with the internet. It completely changed the field of education. But the internet, the internet probably took us 10 to 15 years before it was actually integrated into the world of higher ed in a kind of deep and substantive way. And I think AI is probably, it's probably going to be faster. It's going to be a 5 to 10 year, but it's going to go through the same hype cycles where people are going to radically oversell it and then they're going to crash and then we're going to figure out all these ways as it builds out, all these kind of good things we can do with it. So it's going to be an interesting adoption cycle. And the most important thing is the loud voices, whether it's hyperbole or caustic cynics, we just have to calm those down and kind of create a space where good conversations can happen. And for us, it's always about putting it on purpose, right? We are a different kind of universities, and we jokingly say we are difference makers educating difference makers in a different way, right? And we're good with that. Like, we're totally good with that. And what's great is, like, our faculty and staff totally know who we are and they know what we're about, and so we're not fighting battles with them, trying to do these kinds of things, because they understand who we're trying to serve.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'll give you the final word here. I think you've shared a lot of great perspectives and just the way that you are, operating an institution to be accommodating, the modern learner, helping them to be successful and achieve their goals and everything. So, with all of that being said, kind of the final thought here, advice that you would give to other higher ed leaders right now.
Yeah, I think the main thing is there isn't one best way. You have to figure out what set of students you're intending to serve and why, and get crystal clear on that. And then again, from that point forward, you can start pulling in all the technologies, all the support strategies, all the kind of value propositions that are going to make sense with that set of students, and just really care about it and work on delivering well to help those students learn well, finish strong, and launch effectively. It's amazing. Good things will come your way if you deliver on the promise.
Great words to leave on here. Appreciate you, Mark, for all that you do and for giving me some of your time for the show here. We'll have ways to connect with you and National University in the description for the episode. Yeah, it's really great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dustin.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.